Hey everyone, this is part 2 to a series of videos about the Five Nights at Freddy's universe, going through each of the games, the books, everything. So, if you haven't watched part 1, I highly suggest you do it now. With that said, on to the video. With fans not accepting the idea of Dream Theory, Scott had to make a way to explain a lot of the weird details about FNAF. Who was Purple Guy? Why did he kill the kids? And what did Fredbear mean by "I will put you back together" at the end of Night 6 in FNAF 4? Scott would have to explain all of this with FNAF's first and only novel that Scott originally titled Five Nights at Freddy's The Untold Story, before switching it to Five Nights at Freddy's The Silver Eyes. 17-year-old Charlie Emily, daughter of co-owner of Freddy's, Henry Emily, arrives to her hometown of Hurricane, Utah in 1995, or Hurricane as I've learned it's called, to witness the launch of the scholarship dedicated to Michael, a kid murdered at Freddy's. She meets up with her old friends and decide to go to abandoned Freddy Fazbear's Pizza at an abandoned mall. There they meet Dave Miller, the night guard. One of Charlie's friends, John, decides to randomly mention that he saw a guy dressed in a golden bodysuit the night Michael died. Charlie begins to remember her past at Hurricane and the disappearance of her brother when she was a child. So, her and John go around the town to Charlie's old house and the old Fredbear's family diner. Meanwhile, Carlton gets kidnapped by Dave Miller wearing a golden bodysuit. Eventually, everyone realizes Carlton is missing. They return to the abandoned Freddy's and find Dave Miller in the spring bodysuit alongside Carlton trapped in a spring lock suit and the animatronics walking around trying to kill everyone. After playing FNAF 1 IRL, Charlie does a funny and activates the spring locks within Spring Bonnie's suit, killing Dave as he's dragged away by Freddy, Bonnie, Chica, Foxy, and Golden Freddy, revealed to be none other than Michael. And then Carlton's dad finds out that the man known as Dave Miller was actually named William Afton, co-owner of Freddy's alongside Henry. Purple Guy is also William Afton. And that was it. Now we had an actual basic reason of why animatronics went after security guards and adults. It was because previously an adult security guard had taken away their happiest day. That's why they hated most security guards and tried to kill them. And that was it. FNAF was over again.
And then 10 days later, Scott released Sister Location. God damn it!
With all due respect, those aren't the design choices we were curious about, Mr. Afton.
Daddy, chill.
What the hell is even that?
Similar to FNAF 2 being the turning point in FNAF where Scott went fully into the lore, Sister Location was the point where Scott decided to sort of jump the shark while also expanding on world building in the most confusing way possible. But we'll get to that later. First, gameplay. Sister Location was the very first FNAF game where you weren't bound to just one singular location. Whereas FNAF 4 introduced movement throughout a single room, Sister Location introduced the idea of moving just completely throughout an entire location, an entire building. In the game, you work as a technician at Circus Babies Entertainment and Rental, a rental service for animatronic characters Funtime Foxy, Funtime Freddy, Delora, Baby, and Funtime... nevermind, Chica's dead. You make your way through 5 nights of gameplay, each different from the last. Night 1 has you do basic tasks where you light up animatronics and then shock them and then you call it a day. Night 2 has you hide under a desk before making your way to the breaker room, fending off Funtime Freddy while resetting power to different parts of the building. And other buildings. Night 3 has the player do maintenance on Funtime Freddy before being scared by Funtime Foxy and having to fend for their life from mini arenas, Belora's little henchmen, while being trapped inside of a failing springlock suit during Night 4. Finally, Night 5 has the player return for their last day where they deactivate Baby and make their way to one of 2 rooms, while being guided by Baby. One is the Scooper Room, which was designed to remove the endoskeletons, where the player finds a comedically large spoon. The player then gets scooped as he sees a mound of eyes, wires, and a clown mask staring at him named Ennard. A cutscene plays and the player sees themselves in a mirror, with their eyes now replaced with purple robotic eyes. The player has been replaced by Ennard.
Oh god damn it, not again.
Room 2, however, can be accessed by ignoring Baby's instructions after beating the game's 8-bit minigame Def thing. In the minigame, the player plays as Baby as she delivers cupcakes to children, but through careful platforming, the player can get to the end, pick up an ice cream cone, then make all their way back to the front and deliver it to a small child before the child gets clawed into Baby. Upon ignoring Baby's instructions, the player will find themselves in the private room. There, they will have a FNAF boss battle with Ennard using normal FNAF 1 gameplay. However, in the room, the player can find a Fredbear plush and a keypad. By typing in 1983 or 1983, the monitors will switch to images of the FNAF 4 gameplay house. However, regardless of if the player beats the entirety of the last survival Ennard boss fight room, Ennard eventually makes their way to the player's house and apparently just like into them, I guess. I don't know. So that was it. FNAF was final. One part of the FNAF games that I completely forgot to mention is the custom nights, partially because it's just a bonus night. It's just to give you like extra little tidbits to do. So I didn't really care to mention them because if I did, it was just repeating information. But essentially, custom nights allowed you to change the AI levels of different animatronics and make them however you want to. You can make them as hard or as easy as you want to, with the obligatory max mode of each version of the custom night to come out. FNAF 1 had 420 or 2020 mode. FNAF 2 had 1020 mode. FNAF 3 didn't really have a custom night, but it did have Nightmare mode, which was just max AI overall. FNAF 4 had a similar thing where it introduced Nightmare, a darker version of Nightmare Fredbear, with generally faster AI, making for a essentially 2020 mode. And of course, FNAF World didn't have any of this because it wasn't a regular FNAF game. But the custom night, or max mode, was always an essential part of FNAF since day one. But Sister Location didn't have one until December 1st, 2016.
Yay! An early Christmas present! Oh.
10 different animatronics against you in the Ennard boss fight room, the private room. Hearing this, you may think that Baby and Ennard would be part of the custom night.
No.
Ballora, Funtime Freddy, Yendo, a secret character, Funtime Foxy, Bonnet, a new character, Biddy Babs, which only appear for one night, Electro Babs, which are Biddy Babs but electrified, Lilbit, a secret character, Mini Rena, and Mini Rena 2. Same Mini Renas, but different, I think. 2 secret characters, 1 new character, and 2 repeats with slightly different mechanics alongside 3 regular animatronics. No Ennard, no Baby. Oh yes, you could rationalize it by saying, well, Baby's in Ennard and Ennard escaped. But the other fun times are also in Ennard, despite being present in the custom nights. And then there's the minigames. After completing each challenge, the player is presented with cutscenes of a man walking home. Each time the man does this, he slowly decays, turning purple. Eventually, the man decays so much that he pukes out some metal spaghetti, Ennard, before collapsing. Baby then repeatedly says he won't die before the man rises up again. This decayed purple man is the player character, who got scooped and is now alive. And then, after being the hardest challenge of the custom night, the player gets this final cutscene.
Father, it's me, Michael. I did it. I found it. It was right where you said it would be. They were all there. They didn't recognize me at first, but then they thought I was you. And I found her. I put her back together, just like you asked me to. She's free now. But something is wrong with me. I should be dead, but I'm not. I've been living in shadows. There is only one thing left for me to do now. I'm going to come find you. I'm going to come find you.
The player is Michael, talking to his father, Springtrap, aka William Afton. Now, not to be confused with Michael from the books, who ends up being Fredbear, which wouldn't make sense, and we'll get to that much later in the video. But keep that in mind. This is a completely different Michael to the Michael in the books that becomes Golden Freddy. This is Michael Afton, who is human, maybe? Question mark? We play as the son of the killer of which being Springtrap, aka William Afton, who is still somehow alive even after Fazbear Fright's burning down. Oh, also, Baby has the soul of Michael Afton's sister, given evidence by the fact that Michael finds her, and the post-night dialogue being between William and a child talking about wanting to go to Baby, and also being the one child that Baby eventually grabs in the 8-bit minigame. So that was it. FNAF was over. Again. Except for the fact that Scott planned on making the singular book that he already had into a trilogy. Ennard was also loose in the world gameplay-wise, the killer Springtrap was alive, and Michael was walking around as a rotting corpse, so there's that. No intro, we're getting right into this. Charlie is now in college. She delved into the same work that her father did, robotics, but she keeps having mysterious visions of her brother who is taken by Afton and a door. Then Clay Burke comes by, tells Charlie that a bunch of people that look like her are dying with spring lock wounds on them. She, Jessica, John, and Clay go on a bunch of wacky adventures and investigations that eventually lead them to a cave. There they find William, still trapped in a spring bodysuit, controlling the twisted animatronics, which are just blank husks of like the Funtime animatronics that bury themselves at night and then use sound illusion discs to make them look scary, which is a whole new can of worms. It's these twisted animatronics that have been killing off the people that look like Charlie. Charlie and co are chased into the cave where Charlie and John find the door Charlie had been seen alongside William, telling Charlie that he didn't take her brother, he took her. John pleads for Charlie to leave the door and escape. Eventually she does, until a twisted animatronic, Twisted Freddy, captures her and kills her as they get crushed by falling debris, because the building that they're on, which is Henry's old house, is falling down. I forgot, it's been like a year since I read the book. The book ends with Charlie reappearing a few weeks after her death, in the flesh. While this was going on, Scott was working on the 6th mainline title of FNAF, his magnum opus. But it wasn't going to come out for a while, so Scott gave everyone a little Christmas gift, a small little 8-bit minigame similar to some of the joke games that he had made prior. Like when Sister Location, he made a joke about it being released early, and it was actually like a reskin of one of his old games. Scott released this joke title on December 4th, 2017, for absolutely free. All it was a simple little minigame where you can design your own pizza at a little 8-bit pizzeria, and then you throw it at a couple of kids. Then, the levels start progressively getting harder, Shadow Freddy briefly shows up, things like that happening, and then...
What the frick? The frick going on?
Scott bamboozled us all. God damn it, Scott! This was the 6th installment. A game where you build your own pizzeria with catalogs to buy from, survive nights in an office with massive vents, and then salvage animatronics for income. But make the nights harder. This game is amazing. First off, it's free, giving everyone the opportunity to play it. It also has 7 different endings, which we'll get to later, and a fun self-made difficulty curve. I love this game, and just because I won't be talking about the entirety of it, just because there's so many mini games, so many like tiny little itty bitty secrets in it, I highly encourage you to go play it right now. It is completely free on Steam. I think it's also free on mobile. I could be wrong about that one. But just make a Steam account, download Five Nights at Freddy's Pizzeria Simulator, and enjoy it for yourself. It is really fun. Anyway, with that said, on to the office and salvage sections, since the whole pizzeria sim element is pretty self-explanatory. The office portion is simple, no timer from 12 to 6. Now, in order to leave, you have to complete tasks. At your disposal are 3 tools: audio lures, motion detection, and silent ventilation. You also have access to the AC unit, which you can turn on and off. By leaving it off for long enough, the temp will rise to 120 degrees and you will pass out, ending the night. Silent ventilation makes the AC quieter, allowing you to quote-unquote hear the animatronics as they move through the vents. Motion detection shows the location of the animatronics in the vent map. The audio lures will just keep the animatronics away. And that's the office section. Completing this and surviving will move you to the next portion of gameplay, the salvages. 4 different animatronics. Ennard, now with a burnt Freddy mask, Baby, now in scraps, Lefty, a black Freddy, and Afton, also known as William Afton, now missing his arm. Molten Freddy, Scrap Trap, Scrap Baby, and Lefty are the game's lineup of horrors to be faced. The salvages place you in front of each of these horrors as they slowly move as you lift your paper to mark their movements as a tape plays. The only thing you have to defend yourself is a taser that can be used to reset the animatronics if they move too much. But of course, using them too much will decrease the value of the animatronic. So, welcome to the interview. How may I help you? And that was the game. Now on to the endings. 7 different endings. First, if the player does things in the pizzeria, but neglects to collect all the salvage animatronics, they will be fired by the man in the cassette tape. Secondly, if the player doesn't do anything for the entire game, they will get the certificate of mediocrity. Third, if the player collects a hard drive in the form of a purchasable egg baby, and then reset the monitor to the office portion, the player will receive a cutscene of a taped man from the salvage sections talking about the events of the past games, including Afton's murders and his deconstruction of the OG animatronics in the FNAF 3, ending off with a promise to bring them all to the location. This happens while images of Lefty, the sister location scooper, and the audio lore devices from FNAF 3 and Pizza Sim I'll show on screen. Also, there's a extra slide that isn't shown, but you can find it in the code that Scott left in, that shows Molten Freddy with the security tags of Funtime Freddy, Foxy, and Ballora present inside. Meaning, Molten Freddy is the remains of Ennard after Baby left the amalgam, meaning that Baby is Scrap Baby, and Molten Freddy is Ennard but minus Baby, so it's babyless. On Lefty's little blueprint slide, we also find out exactly what Lefty is. A machine meant to lure, encapsulate, fuse, transport, and extract. Spelling Left-E. Possessing navigation sensors, sensory output for a bracelet, and a soother in the form of a music box. The only animatronic that we know of that can be soothed through a music box is, of course, the puppet. Also, the audio file in the game is presented to us as HRY223. HRY sounds a lot like Henry from the books, who was the father of Charlie and co-founder of Freddy's. Charlie, of course, being the first child killed, similar to the puppet. The spirit possessing the puppet, hopefully, from our lore standpoint, also being the first child to be killed by Afton. The 4th ending is Blacklisted. By getting over 50 risk, as found by YouTuber and Twitch streamer Astral Spiff, in the pizzeria section, the player will get blacklisted from ever owning a business due to the amount of risk and lawsuits they have caused in this week alone, because they got, 50 risk. 5th is bankruptcy. If the player manages to lose all their money at any point in the game, the player will lose and all of their save data will be erased. Temporarily. And now to the 2 biggest endings. Completion and Lore Keeper. This was the ending to the series. Again. Scott had to tie up loose ends of the lore and give it a big ending with a nice, beautiful bow tie. The Lore Keeper ending required the player to fully complete 3 minigames: Fruity Maze, Midnight Motorist, and Security Puppet. Starting off with Fruity Maze, the player plays as a small girl playing the game, but over time, the game gets more and more demented, with blood, dead dogs, and funeral scenery being added in. Finally, after losing the game on the 3rd attempt, the girl will see Spring Bonnie looming over her, telling her that her dog is over there, and he'll take her to it. All she has to do is follow him. In Midnight Motorist, if the player goes into the opening on the track, they will transition into a minigame, playing as a yellow man in a purple car. He then drives home, past a grave, and a building called Juniors, where they aren't allowed in. Once home, they find a man watching TV before trying to get into a locked room, begging to be let in. Then going around the house to find a broken window, 2 animatronic footprints, and footprints running away from the house. It's assumed this yellow man is Afton, which doesn't make sense because he's normally depicted in purple, but I mean, he's also depicted in yellow when he's Springtrap, Spring Bonnie, so the evidence being, of course, his purple car, and the person in the room is none other than Michael Afton, given evidence by the fact that the yellow man calls him a he, and if the crying child is the brother of Michael Afton and is also an Afton, he wouldn't have escaped from his room due to his fear of the animatronics. But of course, all of this is at best debatable in the fanbase. And then Security Puppet. The player plays as the puppet, waiting for a child with a green bracelet to appear. On the 4th attempt, the player will see that child outside the building before they disappear. By following outside, the puppet will start short-circuiting, finding the female child dead in an alleyway with car tracks next to the body. The puppet will lay next to the child as it dies out too. This is the same events that we saw unfold in the Save Him minigame in FNAF 2, just with the added, detail of the fact that it's not Save Him, it's Save Her now because it's a female child, and the puppet actually goes out. This child was murdered by Afton and then possessed the puppet. But who is the child? Simple. Charlie from the Five Nights at Freddy's books. First, she was taken by Afton in the novels and was killed. How she managed to come back twice in the novels is still unknown to you. Other than that, that's basically all the evidence leading to the conclusion. Not to mention the Save Him minigame from FNAF 2 also had a child outside of a Freddy's establishment being killed by the purple man, and then jump scare from the puppets. It just sort of fits. Also, Lefty had to be looking out for the puppet because the puppet was looking for a bracelet code, which Lefty possesses, and Lefty has a music box soothing device, which would only work really on the puppet. By completing all the games to the mentioned points, the player will be rewarded with a certificate of completion. Now, on to the completion ending. By getting all of the animatronics, Molten Freddy, aka Ennard, Scrap Trap, aka Afton, Scrap Baby, aka Baby, aka Elizabeth Afton, aka the daughter of the killer, and Lefty, aka the puppet/Charlie, the player will be met with a challenging last 2 nights until this cutscene plays.
Connection terminated. I'm sorry to interrupt you, Elizabeth, if you still even remember that name, but I'm afraid you've been misinformed. You are not here to receive a gift, nor have you been called here by the individual you assume, although you have indeed been called. You have all been called here, into a labyrinth of sounds and smells, misdirection, and misfortune. A labyrinth with no exit, a maze with no prize. You don't even realize that you are trapped. Your lust for blood has driven you in endless circles, chasing the cries of children in some unseen chamber, always seeming so near, yet somehow out of reach. But you will never find them. None of you will. This is where your story ends. And to you, my brave volunteer, who somehow found this job listing not intended for you. Although there was a way out planned for you, I have a feeling that's not what you want. I have a feeling that you are right where you want to be. I am remaining as well. I am nearby. This place will not be remembered, and the memory of everything that started this can finally begin to fade away, as the agony of every tragedy should. And to you monsters trapped in the corridors, be still, and give up your spirits. They don't belong to you. For most of you, I believe there is peace, and perhaps more, waiting for you after the smoke clears. Although for one of you, the darkest pit of hell has opened to swallow you whole. So don't keep the devil waiting, friend. My daughter, if you can hear me, I knew you would return as well. It's in your nature to protect the innocent. I'm sorry that on that day, the day you were shut out and left to die, no one was there to lift you up into their arms, the way you lifted others into yours. And then, what became of you? I should have known you wouldn't be content to disappear. Not my daughter. I couldn't save you then, so let me save you now. It's time to rest, for you, and for those you have carried in your arms. This ends, for all of us, in communication.
This is Henry's speech. Henry was the tape man, and Charlie, the puppet, was his daughter. He finally ended it all, alongside Michael, the player, which explains how the player can survive dying in salvage sections. Michael just doesn't die. But with Henry burning down the Pizza Sim location, Michael, Baby, his sister, Afton, his father, and the souls of the original 5 missing kids, his brother, and Charlie's souls, are all set free. Whoa. I just said all 5 missing kids were set free and Michael's brother? How does that work? Well, there's a widely accepted theory that Michael's brother, the crying child, ended up possessing Fredbear, who became Golden Freddy, who, alongside 4 animatronics, got possessed by the 5 missing kids. Golden Freddy has 2 spirits inside of it, and in FNAF 3, Afton deconstructed the 5 OG animatronics and reads the remnant, which is just metal soul juice essentially, inside the Fun Times, which became Ennard, who became Molten Freddy, who burnt in the Pizza Sim location. So yeah, did that make sense? Because I'm making the vid, and it barely made sense to me. So, that was it. The games were finished. Finally. But Scott forgot the custom night, so he had to introduce it in... the 7th installment. No one was really expecting this game to have any major lore implications after the absolute bombshell that was Pizzeria Sim. So, it was just a normal, fun game. You're in hell! Not again! You play as William Afton, Springtrap, Purple Guy, in a personalized hell where you must face off against 50 different animatronics whose difficulty can be increased all the way up to 20. How do we know this is Afton that we're playing as? Well, using a few new voice lines from the animatronics after they kill you, we can piece together that whoever is being trapped here is being held by the one you should not have killed. And the only 2 people we know in the FNAF universe to have actually killed someone are Michael, who killed the crying child, and William, father and son. Michael had killed his younger brother by accident in 1983, and William has been killing a lot. But there's still a few pointers that point us to William being our player character. But before we discuss this, I need to clarify the lore of FNAF to make sense of what I'm about to say. But of course it's not going to be me. See, after episode 1, I, came to a deal with that one British AI dude, and I don't want to sit here and read all this, because it's a lot, and you're going to see it's a lot, so I'm going to have him read it. So, have fun, British guy.
Alright. So, you got 2 families. The Aftons and Henry. The Aftons are composed of William, the father, Michael, the oldest sibling, Elizabeth, the middle child, and an unnamed crying child. Henry is just himself and his daughter, Charlie. William and Henry made a business together in the 1980s called Fredbear's Family Diner. After its success, William and Henry expand to normal pizza joints using side characters that they inquired like Chico and Foxy alongside non-spring lock animatronics versions of Fredbear and Spring Bonnie.
Spring locks allow the person to reuse the suits that are normally animatronics into costume forms by pulling apart the endoskeleton inside of it and pushing it to the side where they're locked by springs, hence spring lock, and the person can climb inside, wear it as a costume, but if they move around too much and if there's moisture in the air, the endoskeleton like snaps on them, and then they crush and die, and bleh.
The crying child then becomes afraid of the animatronics, likely after seeing a springlock failure. His birthday comes around, and his brother begins tormenting him over his fear. This tormenting eventually boils over on the crying child's birthday, when his brother and his friends lift him into Fredbear's mouth, which clamps down and kills the crying child in 1983. William is, of course, broken by this and takes to drinking and tormenting his only remaining son, Michael, but begins to favor Elizabeth more and more. After Fredbear's closes, the pizza joints become the main source of income for Henry and William. William, however, in a drunken state, kills Henry's daughter outside of a Freddy's location, leaving a security puppet Henry installed to protect his daughter to follow outside and become possessed by Charlie. William returns home and finds Michael to have escaped from his room to visit his brother's grave to apologize once more for what he did. William promises that, when Michael returns, he will be sorry. Henry, finding his daughter killed, kicks Afton from the business, suspecting him. This only infuriates William more, so he gets a job in 1987 at a Freddy's location as a day shift guard in a purple uniform. There, he finds his old Spring Bonnie suit and begins luring kids to the back rooms, where he kills them and places their bodies in the withered animatronics. This causes the toy animatronics, with their criminal database analyzers, to begin freaking out after witnessing a guard kill 5 kids. William quits, finding his job complete, and Henry begins being investigated by the cops. Eventually, the location, alongside other Freddy's locations, are all closed, leaving one last Friday for the last birthday party. There, a guard gets bitten by an animatronic and creates the Bite of 87.
Wow!
After this, William begins working on a competing chain of locations to replace Freddy's, called Circus Baby's Pizza. He makes the fun times and begins setting up for the opening day. However, he adds child luring and encapsulating devices into the animatronics to continue his killing. But his daughter Elizabeth takes a liking to Baby, the main animatronic, which William tries to turn her away from. However, all of this fails as, on the opening day, Baby kills Elizabeth, causing William to shut down Circus Baby's Pizza. He begins repurposing these animatronics for 2 purposes. Using sound illusion discs, he makes nightmare versions of the main for animatronics to torment Michael further at night. However, during the day, he rents out the animatronics to attempt to capture more kids, which kinda just fails. But Michael is scared by these nightmares and countless nights of staying up to defend himself from horrifying nightmare creations. After some time, Michael becomes an adult and moves out, leaving William alone. In his solitude, he visits the ruins of the 1987 FNAF2 location, finding the withered animatronic still walking around because the puppet, who had been taken by Henry, had given the killed children's souls a second life in the animatronics. William, after seeing the withers still alive, begins deconstructing them and melting parts of the metal, making metal soul juice called Remnant. He puts the Remnant into the Funtime animatronics and also finds Baby to be possessed by Elizabeth.
Also, side note, Golden Freddy was the OG Fredbear that killed the crying child, and then the crying child possessed Fredbear, but then when the new Golden Freddy spirit was killed and then put inside Golden Freddy, that spirit also possessed the Golden Freddy, meaning that there was 2 souls inside of Golden Freddy, that being the Fredbear Bite of 83 spirit, the crying child, and then the new Golden Freddy spirit from the missing kids incident that Afton killed and stuffed inside. TLDR, 2 souls inside of Golden Freddy.
On William's 5th visit to the FNAF2 location, he finds 5 spirits which cause him into his Spring Bonnie costume, which fails and kills a William. William is now Springtrap. Michael, to make ends meet, begins looking for a job. While this happens, Henry employs him to look after the FNAF2 location while the remains of the withers are repurposed to make the FNAF1 animatronics, which Michael is employed to be a night guard at 2. However, the FNAF1 location goes under due to bad press and the smell of rotting corpses still present in the animatronics fur. During Michael's time at the FNAF1 location, he begins having nightmares of his job as a night guard in the old room he was tormented by the fun times in when he was a kid. This creates the FNAF4 gameplay. After Freddy's reopening goes under, Michael investigates into his dad's work and finds that Circus Baby's Pizza was turned into Circus Baby's Entertainment and Rental, which had become inactive after William's Springlock incident, leaving Funtime Chique being rented out indefinitely. Michael goes to the bunker where the fun times were located and goes through the sister location gameplay, where he is scooped and becomes immortal. From there, Michael is hired by a friend to work at Fazbear's Freights, a horror attraction based on the FNAF 2 killings. There, he finds his father, Springtrap, and lights him on fire. While all this is happening, the spirits inside Enid briefly work with the puppet, Charlie, to set the crying child, and 4 of the 5 killed kids free. This results in Happiest Day, which works, leaving the other Golden Freddy spirits to pilot Enid on their own alongside Baby, aka Elizabeth. After Michael tells Henry about Enid, they make a plan to lure Enid, Baby, the puppet, and William to a final location. Enid splits with Baby, making Molten Freddy, with the last Golden Freddy spirit, Scrap Baby, with Elizabeth's soul, left her, holding Charlie aka the puppet inside it, and Scrap Trap, the remains of William's Springtrap suit. All of them are lured to the pizza sim location where Michael, Henry, Elizabeth, Charlie, William, and the last Golden Freddy spirit are burned and all set free.
Got all that? No? Good.
Michael! Don't leave me here! Michael! Help me!
Okay, so William, the purple guy, the killer, Springtrap, Scrap Trap, is the player character in UCN. We know this because the crying child spirit was set free, so it can't be Michael. Can't be Henry either because he didn't really kill anyone. Plus, from the deaf voice lines from the Nightmares confirmed that their maker was the player. William Afton made the Nightmares using sound illusion discs on the Funtime animatronics. Also, if the player sets Old Man Consequences from FNAF World 2-1 and catch a fish, they will go to his lake and play as Freddy. The old man tells him to leave the demon to his demons, while a compressed and slowed version of a man yelling for Mike and Henry plays. So, we know it's William, but who's holding him in hell? Who is the one he should not have killed? Here's our options: Charlie, Elizabeth, or the remaining spirit in Golden Freddy. Firstly, Charlie was already set free twice, technically, in Happiest Day and the Pizza Sim Fire. Elizabeth is loyal to William in Pizza Sim, so the only person left is the last of the 5 missing kids, Golden Freddy. Again, more evidence is the end to the 50-20 cutscene. See, after every couple of thousand points, the player gets to watch small cutscenes. The Toy Chica high school days, yes, that's a real sentence, show Afton selecting his victims. The anime of Freddy vs. Foxy cutscenes, yep, show Henry and Afton's rivalry throughout the series. And the final cutscene is... So Golden Freddy was the one he should not have killed. And with that said, FNAF was finally, you know the drill already, it's not over, it's never over. Released on June 26, 2018, a day before UCN. The Fourth Closet was the final book in the official original book trilogy and would be the final installment in the entirety of Five Nights at Freddy's. Never again would there be any more extra lore tidbits that would be explained through books. Nope. This is the worst book in the trilogy in my opinion, so forgive me if I sound very disinterested while reading. Charlie is back, but she's different. John is a sad boy, so he investigates the new Charlie and where the old Charlie went. Eventually, he finds old Charlie in a box with Charlie's aunt Jen or Jan, I forgot which one. She then kinda disappears for most of the book while John and co. follow new evil Charlie. After following her, they find William Afton out of his springlock suit, staying alive using Remnant, the soul juice that we mentioned previously. John finds out the Charlie he knew was a series of 4 robots made by Henry, and the old Charlie was the teen one, whereas the new Charlie is the adult version, which Henry had made with anger before killing himself. Afton stole adult Charlie used the agony Henry placed into her and made her evil. He also found out Charlie uses advanced sound illusion discs to make her look more human. In reality, adult Charlie is Baby from the games. Baby then kills Elizabeth, which is also why adult Charlie is evil, because she's possessed by Elizabeth. Blah 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 goes, things happen. Golden Freddy's spirit is named Cassidy. The old teen Charlie has an internal soul fight between new adult Charlie and Elizabeth, kinda, sorta, where old Charlie uses the memories of her dad's suicide to kill both Elizabeth's soul and her own soul, kinda, in the adult body. The book ends with John visiting Charlie's real grave before he walks away with the new Charlie bots. I don't even know what I read. I genuinely dislike this book. It jumped so many sharks, and then the graphic novel only made it slightly better. It is such a weird book. It was a horrible part to like the series of the trilogy of books. Fourth Closet ruined it. They could have, Scott should have had a better ending. I mean, it works for what it was, but like,
Finally, that is it. Scott was finally finished with FNAF. The story was complete. Everyone was set free. Afton was in hell. The books added extra lore info onto there for the people who didn't get it at first. FNAF was finally over.
Are you challenging me?
Oh, like Scoop!